Trails Beyond the Horizon is the continuation of the Calvard arc, with Van and the crew at Arkwright Solutions taking on their biggest challenge yet. This is also the game where we've got a combination of old characters returning and our new cast really coming into their own. The realization of some of the threads that have been dangling for Calvard since Daybreak 1, if not before that, as well as the setup for what will hopefully be an epic conclusion to this part of the series, before we head into likely the last arc of the Trails series, at least according to a recent interview with Nihon Falcom's president. Trails Beyond the Horizon is a hybrid combat RPG developed by Nihon Falcom and published in the West by NAS America. It is the third game of the Calvard arc and the 13th game overall in the long-running interconnected Trails series. As with most of the mid-arc games in the series, Trails Beyond the Horizon is not a good entry point to the series. This is also the game that starts spoiling previous games in the series, with Trails into Reverie especially brought up a lot. Be advised, if you watch more without having played at least Trails into Reverie, that you will be spoiled in this video. The game originally came to Japan in September of 2024 for PS4 and PS5, the PC port for the Asian region came out in January of 2025, and the Western release of the game on the aforementioned platforms plus Switch and Switch 2 came on January 15th, 2026. This release also marked the first time in the Trails series history that the West has caught up to Japan on Trails releases. Reception-wise, the game received reviews right in line with recent entries in the series, rebounding some from Daybreak 2's comparatively worse performance in that area. The game also continued the trend of declining physical sales in Japan, while overseas audiences appear to be steady or increasing. It's harder to get exact estimates for sales outside of Japan. In the circles I am in for the Trails community, Trails Beyond the Horizon is generally regarded as the best of the Calvard arc so far, so let's talk about what Van and crew are facing this time. Several months after the events of Trails Through Daybreak 2, the whole of Zemuria is rocked by an announcement from the presidential office in Calvard. President Roy Gramhart announces Project Startaker, the first manned mission into space, which sends the people into excited speculation. Beneath the surface of this announcement, though, Arkwright Solutions is seeing more that makes them suspicious of the government's plan. Major players on the continent, such as Marduk Total Security, Heiue, Ikaruga, Elsheim, and the Society are making moves, some apparently in coordination with the government, and some in opposition. At the same time, other groups such as the Bracer Guild and regular law enforcement are being shut out of information completely and left hanging by the intelligence agency for assistance with other strange phenomena cropping up around the country. What is Project Startaker? Why are all of these groups maneuvering about? And what does this mean for Professor Epstein's warning of a coming disaster? For many fans, the Calvard arc has been a lot of setup with not much overall payoff. Horizon changes that somewhat, because the payoff starts happening, but with still plenty more to go. The thing that makes me still satisfied with this is that Trails Beyond the Horizon answers questions that have been brewing not just since the start of the Calvard arc, although some of them have, but even earlier in the series. Granted, much like Cold Steel 3, I feel that Horizon is going to ultimately be judged fairly or unfairly by how its sequel wraps everything up. As we also bring back Reen, Kevin, Rufus, and plenty of characters alongside them for Horizon, it's a great chance to expand the worldview for the arc and get some clashes we've been waiting for. That doesn't mean that the Arkwright crew don't get their own time in the spotlight. In fact, the game is balanced out to be about half Arkwright and then a quarter each for Reen and Kevin's groups. I think this is important because Arkwright's group still needed that development, and I appreciated all that Horizon gave to them. I continue to grow more and more attached to these characters, and the world building remains a highlight of the game. The gameplay of Horizon stays on the same path that Daybreak forged in the first entry, with the hybrid combat continuing to come together to make for a solid overall system. We will start with the action/field part of gameplay, where there are two new mechanics and one adjusted mechanic. The adjusted one is when it comes to the cross-charge mechanic introduced in Daybreak 2. Now, instead of having the follow-up attacks also switch the character you were controlling, they simply follow up and you can continue as the character you were. This change makes perfect sense to keep the action flowing and not disrupt your play. The two new additions are the Zone of Control, ZOC, which allows you to stop time and deliver powerful blows to your enemies, and Awakening. Zone of Control can be done by anyone and is only limited by time. Awakening is for characters with transformations such as Van, Judith, and Chizuna and uses the boost gauge. Once you run out of the boost gauge though, you're back to normal. I like the additions, 1 because it brings more options to the action battles, and 2 because between ZOC's short burst but wide usage and Awakening's long burst but limited characters who can use it, you'll have plenty of tools that give you different ways of tackling the enemies. Of course, the optimal strategy may be to do both at once. Zone of Control also features for command battles where it allows a character to move consecutively, which is obviously a great help in certain fights. However, you will face enemies who can use it too, and they tend to be able to use it for more than just a consecutive turn, sometimes up to 4. Live by the sword, die by the sword, as it were. ZOC activates by doing a double boost on the boost gauge, which means that S-crafts now only require 1 boost to use. The other major addition for command battles, which also uses the boost gauge, comes in the form of shard commands. This is pretty much the Brave Orders from Cold Steel 3 through Trails into Reverie, where they can reduce damage taken, decrease cast time, increase physical or magical damage, and more. I enjoyed the return of this mechanic, as I always found it fun to play around with those and try and time them to maximize their effect. These shard commands are also how some non-traditional fighters can get involved in combat, which is a handy way to keep them relevant as they stick around in the story side of things. Granted, as with many new Trails features, this can also help you devastate your opponents because it's not completely perfectly balanced, which is why the toughest enemies you face may also use shard commands, so it's unbalanced in their favor too. Finally, the game adds in BLTZ, or Blitz follow-ups, to the turn bar bonuses, which brings a character not currently in the party or a support character in to do an attack. It's a nice little bit of bonus damage, but doesn't do much more than that. I don't have a great amount more insight other than saying that if you've enjoyed the way the Calvard games have played so far, then Horizon will keep up that same enjoyment with a few new twists to keep you on your toes. Before we cap off the gameplay though, there is one other addition that I wanted to mention, both because it is an impactful addition and because I want to do a mini rant about it, and it is an addition for the enemies. You will encounter enemies throughout the game who are infected with a mysterious contamination that makes them extra bulky and gives them HP regen throughout battle. There are regular enemies with this as well as some bosses, and there is no way to get rid of their contamination. The effect of this on normal enemies is minimal and easy to ignore. On bosses though, it makes for bosses that are not difficult, but tedious because it lengthens every encounter. I already know the strategy to beat them. It just takes 20 additional turns to do so because of the contamination heals. It is one of the most pointless additions I have seen in the series because it either does nothing or actively detracts from the battle system. Mini rant over. Let's talk about non-combat gameplay. Structurally, the quests are laid out the same as they have throughout the whole Calvard games, with your crew taking on 4 SPGs that will require various things. They can be monster exterminations, include mini activities such as tailing a suspect, or have choices that will give you bonus SP Spriggan points if you choose the right option. At the end, you may also have a choice for how to resolve the incident that gives you points on the Law, Gray, and Chaos alignment system. That alignment system does still give occasional bonuses and items as you progress, but otherwise has no impact on the game or story. The game does distinguish your quests between 4 SPGs, which are structured as they usually have, and topic quests, which you get from simply talking to people, and then you are given topics to discuss with other people around the area that will reveal more and more topics before you come to a resolution of the original problem. I liked this addition as it offered more variety to the typical non-required quests and gave a sense of the party being proactive in resolving community issues rather than just sitting back for people to come to them. Trails Beyond the Horizon also follows in the footsteps of Daybreak 2 by having its own Garten to navigate through. It is optional after a certain point, but Horizon's Grim Garten does include far more that I would consider essential for die-hard Trails fans to see and experience than Daybreak 2's Märchengarten had. The structure is that your party, combined across all 3 groups, gets together to clear stages. Each stage has a game board setup which you progress through getting treasures, clearing areas, and gaining resources/bonuses. At the end, you fight a boss to clear the stage, and as you fulfill certain requirements, you get higher ranks and rewards. From there, you can return to the Grim Garten base area that allows you to view memento orbs collected during your sojourns, redeem Grim tokens for various goodies, rest up and talk to the other characters, engage in challenge battles, games, or virtual fishing, and my favorite part, view connection events you weren't able to see before. That alone made the Grim Garten worth it because now I can see and bond with everyone instead of having to do a whole second playthrough or reloading saves to see those events. I am getting to the point in Trails where all these side dungeons are getting a bit much, but I do appreciate what the Grim Garten specifically brought to the table and felt that it contributed positively to the game overall. As always, Trails Beyond the Horizon also features plenty of mini-games. The card game 7 Hearts does not return from Daybreak 2, but basketball does, along with fishing, hacking, and traditional card games. You even have a new area in the game where you can bet on sports competitions happening around the continent to get a chance for some extra cash. I do still miss the days of Vantage Masters, but given the length of the main story plus the Grim Garten, it probably is for the best that Trails Beyond the Horizon doesn't have as extensive a minigame list. I am curious if they'll include a racing game in Horizon 2 though, because it feels like the Calvard setting in particular is begging for one. Horizon's visual presentation is in line with its predecessors with plenty of well-directed cutscenes, new character outfits, and atmospheric locations. I do wish the game had more new locations for us to explore, but that's a minor point in the larger continued quality of these releases. The music, similarly, does not take any major steps forward, but it has been nice seeing them create new themes for locations we've already been to. Not because the previous themes for those areas were bad or anything, but because it gives them a breath of fresh air as though the atmosphere in the city is changing as events progress. The voice acting remains a strong highlight, and there are even some voice lines in the connection events, which is a great addition. Unfortunately, that brings even more attention to the fact that Horizon continues the still weird choice of having some characters be voiced in scenes and others not, as if certain characters are obligated to have a few voiced lines per game, but they don't appear enough in important events that they have to be shoved into certain scenes while everyone else is silent. My kingdom for a consistently voiced Falcon game. Horizon is also the first Trails game in a while where I have a note on the performance, and it's not a major one, but on PC the game's loading times are noticeably long. Not a game-breaking experience, but I was surprised. Hopefully Durante can figure something out between now and Horizon 2's release to alleviate that minor issue. This does feel a little bit like nitpicking, but sometimes you gotta do that when there are things that come up during your playtime that I think are relevant to bring to my audience. Trails Beyond the Horizon represents a significant shift for the Calvard games narratively, if not so much structurally. Time will be the ultimate test to see if Nihon Falcom can stick the landing with the sequel, but for now, I had a great time with Trails Beyond the Horizon, and I suspect that my fellow Trails fans will as well. For now though, as we are finally caught up, all we can do is speculate as to what is coming next. What did you think of Trails Beyond the Horizon? Leave your thoughts in the comments, like this video to help out the channel, and subscribe if you have not already for more videos in the future. Have a great day, and happy gaming!